Okay, I'm back. I'm over here somewhere, and we're going to talk in more detail about the DX9 and also do some comparisons to the JR12X over there. I keep calling the JR12X a DX12. It's not. It's a JR12X. So sorry for the confusion if I've confused you. The first thing I want to talk about is the switches that are on the DX9. They are they're not labeled as they used to in the past. This is labeled switch A, that's switch B. This is switch I, or the bind switch. Okay, then they go around with a a C, a D, over here an E and F. That's the G, and the this is, I'm sorry, that's the G, that's the right knob, and that's H. And then you have the obviously the other controls and the on-off switch and the roller and a clear and a back button. So when Spektrum designed this, they made it very flexible, and you can assign anything to any switch any way you like. With that flexibility comes confusion, because both on the DX7 and the 12X that I've been used to using, it has almost the identical set of switches. Obviously there's a few more because this is 12 and that's 9 channels, but you have, instead of this channel being, this switch being labeled A, it's the gear switch, so that says gear. This is the flight mode switch, so you got 1, 2, 3 flight modes. This is aux switch, which is a knob. You have sliders back here. By the way, there are I didn't mention it, but there are sliders on the back here and on the other side, rarely used. So this says elevator DR and flap, and that's aux 4, this is aux 5, and that's aux 2, and that's aileron, and this is this one here is rudder DR, and that's a 2-position max hold, and that's aux 7. Then you've got these two tiny little switches, rocker switches here, and a rocker switch here that does all kinds of stuff. Okay, but the point I'm trying to make is that with the DX12, they told you where each switch should be, and a lot of pilots got used to that. This switch here is your flight mode switch, and so when I program it, I program this to be my flight mode switch, and I can program anything to be my flight mode switch, but I'm going to program this one to be flight mode because the 12X had the flight mode, and if I have a gear, that's going to be the gear. This is bind. On the 12X, the bind was a little button right down here on the back. Where I'm used to having a switch from the JR12X, I want to use that same switch. Like this here was the flap, and so now this is going to be my flap, and this was 3-position elevator DR. This will be my 3-position elevator DR, and like this one said aileron DR dual rates, and so this will be my dual rate. This one wasn't assigned, it was aux 2 over here, so this may have several functions here. Here are your rocker switches that were over here, they're now here and here, and so the design is very similar, but if you've never used a Spektrum before, and you might be confused as to which switch is which because the manual doesn't say recommend what to do, my recommendation is download the manual for the 12X JR12X, which is still available online. Read it, see how the switches are done, and try to do the same setup for the DX9. So that's my recommendation on switches. And if you if you end up wondering why I've picked a particular switch, I'll try to explain it. But the history of switches on Spektrum radios has evolved. I think actually the DX9 is better, gives you flexibility, but with that flexibility, for a new person that's never owned a Spektrum radio before, it can be confusing. I think the natural feel of where these switches are on the JR12X and the DX9 is good. I love the excuse me. I love the roller, this roller down here, and you'll see that in action in a future video. So I just want to make sure you understand the switch assignments. A lot of mine are because I'm used to using the 12 and I want the same switch for the same function on the 9. Okay, thank you.